And I think there are roving microphones. And if before you ask a question, could you say what's your name and where do you come from? Sorry, what company you represent?
John Daly from Galway. We developed a seaweed drink called Liquid. And a bit like the Kind Bar, I suppose we're too far ahead of our time. Whereas a lot of people have interest, but the retailers are waiting for first movers, and we're just wondering how to get to market. My own history is I had John Daly Foods, and we imported innocent smoothies into Ireland. But I used to think we were doing all the hard work and they were doing the easy job. But I find now with a brand of my own, it's very hard to develop a brand. So I'm just wondering, how do we get it on the shelf? You know, we have it at about 80 shops, but not enough for export and everything.
Tom or Guy, would you like to comment on the from the more start-off element, and how do you get distribution?
In some respects, our initial distribution was our direct-to-consumer model. So we were going for 2.5 years before we even knocked on a retailer's door. And so we had a lot of data around that to be able to show that, like, well, here's 10 products that didn't work, or here's 10 flavor variants that didn't work. And we were able to get consumer affirmations from the stuff that we're doing from a direct-to-consumer level. And then equally, our first 3 listings, Planet Organic, it's 7 stores. Whole Foods, it's 7 stores. But they're respected stores in sort of opinion formers. And it's the same with our X Bar in that respect, where they were doing it through specifically CrossFit boxes in the States. I suppose the one challenge, I suppose, that it requires a little bit of patience in that respect, because even if you're flying out the door in Whole Foods, it's still not going to keep the lights on, to pay a marketing person to. So, I suppose it's important to have a view on the long game. But really, from our perspective, if you think from inception through to now, where we are today, it's 3.5-4 years before we're about to launch into a major retailer Sainsbury's, in the UK. So I suppose that it is that patience of building the base and getting that sort of feedback loop through.
Would you like to talk about the direct, the initial direct sales a bit? Because I don't think many companies here are doing that. Or how did you start that, or what model did you use?
Yeah, we originally started with the subscription model, and I suppose we were inspired because obviously across different categories, subscription had become quite a big thing. So definitely in razors, there was Dollar Shave Club and Harry's. In food, Graze had done really well, and effectively sending a regular delivery to someone of products, and they were, people were able to customize them. And something that we'd identified was that, particularly in our category, which was kind of more active people actually had very kind of regular regimes. So they'd probably go to the gym, or at least they'd try to go to the gym every Monday and every Wednesday, and I don't know, they play netball on Sunday, whatever it is. So we thought that actually the subscription model would work really well for active people and for people that are training for kind of specific events. So yeah, we effectively launched what we call a tribe pack. So that is a kind of pack of 4 different tribe products, a mixture of shakes, energy bars, protein bars, and hydration drinks. And people are able to go online and effectively customize their pack with whatever they'd like. And it's amazing that you're able to do that. I mean, believe it or not, with £100 of Facebook spend, and it genuinely was how it was. You're able to start acquiring customers direct and through your own website. So that created an amazing kind of experience and community. What we found after 2 years was that, as Guy said, when we looked at the value and the ordering of different customers and the data we had on those customers, we saw that actually this was an amazing experience for your kind of core tribe. So your people that were doing triathlons or marathons, or kind of effectively the kind of more niche fitness audience. But when we looked at the data for kind of just the more kind of everyday active people, what that showed us and what people were telling us is, I love Tribe products. I'd buy it in my local convenience store, but I don't feel the need to subscribe. So I suppose, first of all, it's so easy nowadays, whether it's Amazon or subscription or e-commerce, just to start building that kind of direct relationship, just to start selling to people. And people are so much more open to doing it with food and drink. So I suppose that would be my first thing. And then I suppose just secondly, in each category it will vary, but it's thinking, ultimately there is always going to be quite a large percentage of purchasing that happens outside of e-commerce. So, I remember meeting very early on with the founder of Fevertree, and, I was kind of extolling the virtues of direct-to-consumer and subscription, and he goes, yeah, I get that that's where all the trends are going, but still, 95% of energy bars aren't bought online or whatever it is. So I think that would just be one thing I would say is that, when you get past a certain point in your growth trajectory, you might say, well, actually, are we happy just in this kind of niche that we're in, or do we want to kind of open ourselves up to more purchasing? But particularly in that early phase of product development, there's so much that we were able to learn that, would have ultimately just translated to weaker rate of sale if we'd been on a supermarket shelf in those first few months. So I think it's really good.
Thanks very much. Next question.
Hi, sorry, Suzanne from Flavins. I have a question for the guys. Firstly, I want to be part of your tribe. It was an amazing presentation. But secondly, obviously you've created this movement. It's so much broader than a product reaching a consumer. It's experiential. There are people buying into it at a very early stage of the business. They believe in the product, believe in the movement that they're part of. Do you feel that as you develop scale and become mainstream, that you are going to lose some of those early adopters because it's become just mass market? Or how are you going to plan to work against that?
Well, I'll let me have a crack, but Tom will have a much better answer, I'm sure. But my starter for 10 with that is really, if you think about kind of these experiences that we're creating, fundamentally you can't get the UK population in a room doing an experience like that. So at the end of the day, you are cherry picking to a certain extent with the type of experiences that we're offering. There are only certain people who are going to want to come and run 280 kilometers around the Azores with us. Or there's only certain types of people who are going to be into the sort of events that we're putting on. Now, you can find multiple niches, but it's having those human interactions with people that we really believe that, that's why we call ourselves Tribe. It's about building that direct connection with people. And I think probably we will always have that connection. I suppose that the challenge will be in communicating that on shelf when you are mass. It would be, I think, is more of the challenge that we're trying to solve. Like, how do we explain to people through the other touch points that the tribe is about bringing people together to go. One of our mottos is go further and faster together. So bringing people together, allow them to experience the tribe, and I think that's what we'll be really pushing hard to do. And we've tried some different models recently where we historically we've always put on organised events ourselves. So that first run that we did, we plotted the route on Google Maps and ended up kind of stuck halfway up a mountain with 30 people behind us, being like, which way do we go now? And and it was pretty Dad's Army. I don't know if you've watched that. It was pretty hodgepodge at the start, and you kind of make your mistakes, and it's fun and exciting. And I suppose now we're experimenting this next stage of where we're getting people to organise events on our behalf. So they're tribe events they're doing. So therefore, hopefully, people won't get lost up mountains. And it'll be a little bit more professional, but it'll allow us to focus on the reach and the brand and the human interaction rather than stressing about whether, the second event we did, we had to divert the day before we set off because we found out that we'd plotted a route through a part of the country that had landmines. You know, that kind of stuff. So now when you're getting bigger and better, you have to do it more professionally. But I still think we focus on that human element that we can bring to the party, and it therefore means that you're going to have quite bespoke interactions with people that will hopefully not mean it's alienating.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think exactly as Guy said, yeah, that's the challenge. And I think, interestingly, you know, it's kind of come out recently because inevitably, you know, when we look at what's on our social media feed or, you know, what we're saying, inevitably, as you try and compete in kind of mass market for kind of everyday lifestyle performer, you know, I'm sort of saying the whole time to our person that leads on kind of marketing, you know, let's make this more accessible. Let's make it more about, you know, not just about performance, because that might be alienating. So obviously, as you become more mass, you lose some of that kind of nicheness. But two things I think are important. One is, you know, just doing some things that are kind of unashamedly niche. So, for example, we are organising this trail race in the Azores, Run for Love 3, and, you know, in a great way, that's just something where you can really kind of let the shackles off and say, let's just do it like we would have done it in 2012. Like, you know, we don't have to care about making it look accessible or feel accessible, because this is something that's only for really serious, hardcore ultra runners, and let's just tell the true story of that event rather than diluting it, which I think is really important. And then I think also just, you know, people love, you know, inevitably maybe as you come mainstream, you know, you lose some of that personal connection because that becomes less of your daily time. But actually what we find is that people love feeling part of the journey. And, you know, as Guy says, you know, nothing gets a better reaction on social media than when, you know, people see a milestone, or people, you know, obviously people own some of Tribe, but people love that sense of being invested. And if you let them stay invested, actually, I don't think they say Sainsbury's, oh God, you've sold out, you know, I want the next bar in, you know, Whole Foods. They actually say, you know, I love that you've, you know, done that, and, you know, we want to be part of that. So I think it's obviously a balance, but there are, so there's lots of ways to keep close to people as things change.
Front row here, Niamh. Yeah.
Hi, Dennis Donoghue from Lear Chocolates. It's almost a follow-up question to the last question, and again, it's my apologies, Kerry, but it's for the two guys from Tribe. You almost have two brands, and the original brand wasn't actually the performance nutrition brand, but it was the Tribe Foundation brand. That sort of going out and doing something, that kind of social activism, raising money, and what you've done in terms of the Tribe Foundation and raising £350,000 is incredibly impressive. And I'm just wondering how you see that brand. Now, I know you don't have two brands, you have a brand, which is Tribe, but you almost have sort of two parallel. You have a performance nutrition brand, which is fantastic, and then you have this incredible social activist foundation, which sits alongside it. And I'm just wondering how you see the parallel development of those two, and if, you know, if the foundation will remain proportional to the size of the brand as you go along, if it will remain as important for you. I presume it will remain as important, but how, you know, the next, how that will actually look sort of in, you know, when you guys are a sort of a 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, 100 million pound brand in 5 years' time, what will the role be of the foundation at that point?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I suppose firstly, something I'd say is, I think the challenge for us and for all brands, ultimately, if you want to be a lifestyle brand, is you have to kind of fit into people's lifestyle. And so I suppose in that sense, we're kind of very deliberately, you know, our primary mission is around changing the world of performance nutrition, but we think that if you're going to fit into that kind of lifestyle, you have to kind of exist in other places. And, you know, there's so much, you know, value ultimately if people are also wearing your merchandise or fundraising for your sister charity. So I think that ultimately is kind of what we're doing, but I think it's obviously an interesting, you know, super interesting question and interesting challenge that we shouldn't ever be creating, you know, making it all as seamless as possible. I suppose the great opportunity that we do have though is we had a trustee meeting a few weeks ago for the foundation, which operates as a kind of sister but separate organisation, and we were talking about how we could kind of have the greatest impact to fight trafficking, and the bottom line is the greatest impact to fight trafficking and the greatest asset that Tribe has is the fact that 2 million Tribe bars will be opened and unwrapped this year. That's the greatest way we can talk to people. So I suppose hopefully scale and hopefully profitability will ultimately, if anything, expand your potential to have an impact and kind of make it easier to reach people and talk to them. So I think hopefully we see it being very seamless.
And yeah, I 100% agree with that. And I think the other thing that I find very useful way to sort of string it all together is in a lot of respects, so we have the products that we sell, that the whole mission of those is to enable people to push themselves and try new things, and that's the whole spirit of the brand. We have the events that are effectively a marketing vehicle that sits alongside those, but the kind of glue that brings that all together is the community and the charity, therefore. And otherwise, you could just look at those events as a marketing thing, and in fact, it's a lost opportunity if you don't, you can use those as an additional force for good, as a multiplier. In fact, I mean, so as Tom said, we're on track to raise up to £500,000 this year. That's not just 1p from every bar that we sell goes to the foundation, but that's the lion's share of that 500 grand will be from people taking part in our events and raising funds off the back of those events. And so I think that's a really important thing that kind of, it's like, I guess with all best social enterprise is it's symbiotic as opposed to detracting from one another. So I think that's a really important thing. And I think the other thing that Tom alluded to as well is the separation between the two. So we have board of directors that that drives Tribe for Tribe's benefit, and then we have a separate board of trustees, of which us founders sit on both. But then their sole focus is on maximising the opportunity that the foundation has by being attached to Tribe. And those two are aligned, but equally slightly different. And I think that works really well. And then the final thing is the community. If you just try and monetize your community by flogging them more shit, it's gonna just make them feel commoditized, right? Whereas actually, if you are, one of the biggest assets that the foundation has is being able to use the community as a force for good. And I think people therefore feel valued and feel part of something in that respect, rather than just being sold to. And I think that's really valuable as well.
Yeah. Niamh, you got the mic in the middle here? Oh, sorry.
It's kind of building Lorraine and facilitator. John, I suppose it's probably maybe a question directed at you, reflecting the conversations of the people tonight.
That's unfair.
I know it is, but I'm kind of, because what you hear with Tribe is a very strong cause with a very strong community that's created a career, and it's a very integrated way of working and developing this whole business. And it clearly poses challenges for the bigger organizations out there, the big companies and the multinationals. And I'm kind of wondering about the model of the way of working, and what that implications might be for the big multinationals and how maybe they need to work. Is there implications there just in the basic kind of model of business and how they work? And Kelly might have a thought on that, because I'm kind of thinking I'd be really bugged with all these challenger brands coming out and the challenge that I have to do. And then I'd be thinking, well, now I've got to get all my people aligned inside. Yeah. And rather than seeing it as a separate thing of that's a HR thing, that's a CSR thing, that's a marketing thing, these challenger companies are really kind of saying, sod the boundaries, we're just pulling it all together, and we're really clear on our cause, we're really clear on our community, and what that means in terms of what we're offering. So I kind of wonder about that at a high level.
I'll let Kelly take that up in a minute, but she did have a clue, I think, in her slides to an answer to that, which is Unilever. And if you
Yes.
look at what Dove have done, they have an institute for female self-esteem, which runs alongside the Dove brand. And in terms of sales, since they started those videos, and they're incredibly powerful videos, in 2004, sales have gone from 2.4 billion to 4.8 billion. So they have worked both. And I just think Unilever is the company I would look at.
Okay.
And I don't think I always make this point, I don't know whether I've made it here before, but it's certainly not an accident that Unilever started out because William Lever was appalled at the poverty in northwest England, and he set up a factory to alleviate poverty, and he bought the houses for the workers to give them jobs. And the first brand they made was Sunlight Soap and Port Sunlight. He built the village, he built the houses. So that's where Unilever actually come from in 1884. I think everybody's raised quite interesting questions here tonight, both touching on the topics that the speakers have covered. So I'd say that there's a lot to go home with and think about for all your own businesses. But above all, I'd like to thank the three speakers for very inspirational speeches.